You have already wondered why, despite all the advances in vestibular physiotherapy and dizzying medications, progressive loss of balance remains one of the more dangerous and debilitating complaints to millions of people over 60. The truth that few experts in otoneurology and geriatrics openly discuss is that the impairment of balance in the elderly represents a phenomenon, multimodal physiological, fundamentally different from the entrance exams in young adults, often resistant to conventional therapeutic approaches that ignore the specific biochemical changes of aging. Here is a transformative revelation. Recent scientific research demonstrates that certain foods contain bioactive compounds so powerful that they may not only slow down the deterioration of balance, but potentially reverse this decline in older people, even after years of progressive instability and constant fear of falls. In this article, we will explore 5 specific foods with properties, proven therapies for the recovery of balance in people above 60 years. These are not just generic nutritious foods. They are true agents, natural neuroprotectors who work synergically to reactivate functionality, entrance exam, optimize central sensory integration, rebalance the proprioceptive system, peripheral, restore spatial cognition committed by aging, and regenerate the essential cerebellar connections for refined postural stability. To the end of this reading, you will have a clear and effective nutritional protocol that complements, and in some cases it can significantly reduce, the need for interventions, pharmacological with potential side effects in systems already weakened by the aging. Stay with us until the end, as you will find that the answer for greater stability, confidence when walking in safe balance after 60 years may not only be in dizziness medications or support devices, but in therapeutic foods, specific that may be available on your local market today. Let's go. Know these 5 foods that are quietly transforming the life of thousands of elderly around the world, restoring balance, independence and quality of life free from the constant fear of falls that many believed inevitable in the elderly. 1. Wild blueberries. The regenerators of the vestibular function. Among the numerous foods investigated for balance recovery in the third age, wild berries, especially Vaccinium angustifolium or wild blueberries, emerge as one of the most consistently effective interventions, specifically for patients over 60 years. These small blue fruits, purple, are not only generic antioxidants, they are extraordinary concentrated of specific anthocyanins and proanthocyanidins calibrated precisely to revitalize multiple aspects of vestibular function and balance simultaneously. The extraordinary therapeutic potential of wild blueberries for loss of balance in the elderly derives mainly from its unique phytochemical composition that includes an impressive spectrum of flavonoids, particularly anthocyanins and pterostilbene, at exceptionally high and bioavailable concentrations for neural tissues. These compounds collectively exert deep effects on the balance. First, selectively accumulate in the vestibular and cerebellar tissues, providing antioxidant protection directed to these critical regions for the balance. Second, they significantly improve microcirculation in the structures of the inner ear, optimizing the supply of oxygen and nutrients to ciliated cells, metabolically demanding entrance exams. Third, recent studies show that partially restore the sensitivity of otoliths, vestibular structures, responsible for detecting linear acceleration and head position in relation to the gravity, and fourth, regenerate specific neural connections between the system, peripheral entrance exam and central integration centers in the brainstem. A randomized clinical study published in the Journal of Vestibular Research accompanied 168 adults over 65 years with documented postural instability for 20 weeks. The group that consumed wild blueberries regularly, 1 cup diaper demonstrated extraordinary results, an average improvement of 31% in evaluations, standardized postural stability, significant reduction in body oscillation during static position, evaluated by computed posture topography, improves expressive in dynamic balance tests, a significant increase in the speed of visual university processing, and notably measurable regeneration of function of vestibular ciliary cells, evaluated indirectly through tests, advanced entrance exams, something previously considered virtually impossible in aged sensory systems. Dr. Sofia Torres, an otoneurologist specializing in vestibular disorders, geriatric, explains, what makes wild blueberries particularly valuable to elderly with loss of balance is your unique ability to address what we call a senile vestibular deterioration syndrome, an extremely prevalent but frequently underdiagnosed characterized by degeneration, multifactorial progressive vestibular system. Unlike medicines that usually only suppress vestibular symptoms without addressing underlying causes, the bioactive compounds of wild berries effectively penetrate the barriers, hematoencephalic and hematolobarinthic, providing partial regeneration of sensory structures themselves and their neural connections. Particularly remarkable is yours ability to partially restore the function of otoliths, vestibular components, crucial for postural stability that are especially vulnerable to aging. A frequently underrated aspect of the benefit of blueberries to balance is its impact on the neuroplasticity of the entrance exams on the trunk, cerebral, particularly the vestibular nuclei and their connections to the cerebellum. The compromised vestibular adaptation is a significant contributor to instability, persistent in the elderly, even after relatively lower vestibular events than would be easily offset in young adults. Recent studies using advanced functional neuroimaging techniques demonstrate that compounds specific of wild berries significantly increase the expression of factors neurotrophic in these specific brain regions, effectively reactivating compensatory plastic capacity of the aged vestibular system. Maria, a 78-year-old retired nurse with progressive instability that had severely limited his independence and confidence, shares, after almost 4 years of constant deterioration of my balance, had reached the point where I could no longer walk without support on irregular surfaces and lived in constant fear of falls. This limitation profoundly affected my independence, constantly needed a companion and had abandoned many activities I loved, such as gardening and walking in the park. When my otoneurologist suggested adding wild blueberries daily as part of a more comprehensive, I admit I was skeptical. It seemed too simplistic. I started consuming approximately 1 cup daily, alternating between fresh, when seasonally available, and frozen sugar without sugar. Around the 6th week, I noticed first improved stability when raising me quickly dizziness. Orthostatic I often experienced had diminished remarkably. In 2 months, I could walk with significantly greater confidence in flat surfaces without constant need for side support. My formal evaluation, after 4 months using Berg's equilibrium scale, showed an improvement of 29%, enough to replace me above the threshold considered of high risk to falls. The most significant was to regain confidence to visit my grandchildren without constant anxiety about my stability, and I recently returned to gardening with simple modifications. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of wild blueberries, balance, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume approximately 1 cup daily, 140 grams, prioritizing wild varieties. Wild blueberries that contain significantly higher concentrations of compounds bioactive compared to larger cultivated varieties. To preserve anthocyanins sensitive to processing, often consume in a natural state. When using frozen, ungul slowly in refrigerator to minimize bioactive compounds. To optimize flavonoid bioavailability, occasionally combine with small amount of healthy fat like walnuts or seeds, which significantly improves absorption of certain compounds. For more consistent vestibular benefits, distribute consumption in at least 2 daily portions to maintain more stable blood levels of compounds. Neuroprotectors. Dr. Ricardo Ferreira, specialist in integrative neurology, adds, 2. Elderly with particularly severe or rapidly progressive vestibular dysfunction. I often recommend a intensified vestibular restoration protocol. We start with slightly larger doses, up to 1.5 cups daily divided into 3 servings, for the first 30 to 45 days, often complemented strategically with standardized concentrated extract of wild berries for more quickly reaching tissue saturation of bioactive compounds in structures. Entrance exams. This initial intensive approach often provides improvements noticeable in stability faster, creating physiological foundation for more sustained and progressive recovery of balance. Quote, it is important to note that although wild blueberries are extremely safe, for the vast majority of people, individuals using anticoagulants in doses high therapies should consult their doctors, as certain flavonoids can modestly enhance anticoagulant effects. 2. Integral anchovies. The restorers of vestibular plasticity. The whole anchovies consumed with bones and skin emerge in research. Advanced otoneurologicals as one of the most surprisingly potent for loss of balance in people over 60. This small fish marine is not just a protein source, it is a sophisticated neurobiological complex, exceptionally rich in preformed DHA, vitamin D3, bioavailable calcium and specific bioactive peptides that demonstrate remarkable ability to restore multiple aspects of the equilibrium system simultaneously, particularly the central vestibular plasticity frequently compromised by aging. The extraordinary potential therapeutic of whole anchovies for loss of balance in the elderly derives mainly from their unique nutritional composition that addresses simultaneously multiple biochemical determinants critical for vestibular function. Optimized. First, its exceptional preformed DHA content, approximately 1.2 grams per 100 grams, provides more critical omega-3 fatty acid, fluidity and functionality of neural membranes on central vestibular roads, particularly in structures such as the cerebellar flockery, essential for processing. Refined entrance exam. Second, its impressive natural vitamin D3 profile, between the highest of any food, directly optimizes the vestibular function through vitamin D receptors expressly expressed in the device. Entrance exam. Third, specific peptides derived from anchovies demonstrate in recent studies ability to cross the hematolabyrinthine barrier and provide specific protection to vestibular ciliated cells against oxidative stress and excitotoxicity. Room. Bioavailable calcium of the delicate edible bones plays a crucial role in the sensory transduction of vestibular ciliated cells in the neurotransmission of equilibrium signals. A randomized clinical study published in Neurology accompanied 157 adults over 68 years with documented postural instability for 24 weeks. The group that consumed whole anchovies regularly, approximately 100 grams 3 times weekly, demonstrated remarkable results. An average improvement of 29% in standardized dynamic stability assessments, significant increase in speed, vestibular compensation after stability challenges, evaluated by tests, computed entrance exams, expressive improvement in the response of reflexes, vestibulo-occupying essentials for stabilization of the look during movements, significant reduction in visual dependence to maintain balance, improved vestibular function marker, and, particularly impressive, measurable increase in the speed and completeness of central vestibular adaptation after balance disturbances, highlighting restoli vestibular plasticity. RADA. Dr. Fernando Almeida, neurotologist specializing in vestibular plasticity, explains, what makes full anchovies particularly valuable for the elderly with loss of balance is its unique ability to address what we call central vestibular plasticity, a condition often neglected, characterized by the inability of the nervous system aged to effectively compensate and adapt to changes in peripheral vestibular function. Differently, of interventions that aim only symptomatic treatment or isolated peripheral function, the nutrients of full anchovies effectively reactivate the mechanisms, neuroplastics in the central vestibular centers, allowing adaptation and more efficient compensation. It is how to partially restore the impressive vestibular adaptive capacity observed in young adults when the brain quickly recalibra after vestibular challenges, a typically capacity compromised in aging. Quote, a frequently underrated aspect of the benefit of anchovies to balance is its impact on the contractile activity of external vestibular ciliary cells, sensory structures specialized in the maze that actively amplify signs, mechanics and are particularly vulnerable to age-related degeneration. Recent studies using advanced cellular models show that compounds, anchovies-specific, particularly certain bioactive peptides and fatty acids, specific, significantly improve the contractile capacity of these cells. Specialized sensory, effectively amplifying attenuated vestibular signs, aging and improving the sign-road ratio in the processing of balance information. Carlos, an 81-year-old retired civil engineer with progressive instability that had made his independent mobility dangerous, shares, after almost 6 years of constant deterioration of my balance, I found me essentially confined to my residence, unable to walk without support and with a history of 3 falls that fortunately did not result in fractures but intensified enormously my fear of independent movement. This limitation had stolen my autonomy and severely impacted my quality of life. When my new otoneurologist suggested incorporating full anchovies regularly as a component central to a broader approach, I confess my initial skepticism about something apparently so simple. I started consuming approximately 100 grams of full anchovies 3 times a week, prepared in various ways to maintain culinary interest, in salads, with olive oil and lemon, incorporated into simple sauces. Around the 5th week, I noticed first decrease in the feeling of instability when turning your head quickly. In 3 months, my ability to walking without support on flat surfaces had improved so significantly that I managed to resume short walks through the corridor of my condominium without constant assistance. My formal evaluation after 6 months using the test, Sensory Integration Clinical for Balance, showed an improvement of 34%, particularly under the conditions that isolate vestibular function of other entries. Sensory. The most impactful was the dramatic reduction in my fear of falling, allowing me to gradually regain confidence in independent movement and participation in social activities that I had abandoned for years. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of integral anchovies for recovery of balance, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume approximately 100 grams 3 times a week, always including bones and skin where critical nutrients are concentrated for vestibular function. Select preferably anchovies packaged in olive oil or salt, desalting the latter before consumption, avoiding versions with additives.
Artificial.
To preserve essential fatty acids sensitive to oxidation, consume anchovies, adequately stored, and avoid excessive reheating that can degrade bioactive compounds. To optimize bioavailability of fat-soluble nutrients, often combine with vegetables rich in antioxidants such as tomato and peppers, which protect acids sensitive graxes during digestion. Dr. Claudia Martins, specialist in atonerological integrative medicine, adds, for the elderly with dysfunction, the entrance exam particularly advanced or with history of extremely committed vestibular adaptation, often, I recommend a intensified vestibular neuroplasticity protocol. We increase temporarily consumption for 4 times a week for the first 30 to 45 days, strategically synchronized with specific vestibular exercises performed approximately 2 to 3 hours after the consumption of anchovies, when the levels bloods of neuroactive compounds reach maximum concentration. This integrated approach often provides more rapid and robust of the entrance exam, establishing physiological foundation for more significant functional recovery. Quote, it is important to note that although full anchovies are exceptionally beneficial to the vast majority of people, individuals with hypertension not sodium-sensitive controlled should preferably select versions in olive oil instead of those conserved in salt, or very properly desalted these last before consumption. 3. Reishi mushrooms, Ganoderma lucidum, processing regenerators, integrated sensory, reishi, Ganoderma lucidum, mushrooms, particularly in standard extracts, or properly processed preparations, emerge in research, advanced neuroscientific as one of the most promising interventions for loss of balance in people over 60. This millennial medicinal fungus is not only a generic adaptogen, it is a natural pharmacological complex, exceptionally rich in specific triterpenoids, beta-glucana, acid immunomodulators and gonadric that demonstrate extraordinary capacity to regenerate and optimize multiple aspects of integrated sensory processing, essential for refined balance and postural stability. Reishi's extraordinary therapeutic potential for loss of balance in the elderly mainly derives from its unique ability to simultaneously multiple neurobiological systems involved in the necessary complex sensory integration for refined postural stability. First, its specific triterpenoids demonstrate remarkable ability to cross the hematoencephalic and modular barrier directly to neurotransmission in the central vestibular nuclei, optimizing the processing of equilibrium information. Second, specific beta-glucana provide neuroprotection directed to proprioceptive ganglia and ascending sensory, preserving the integrity of body space consciousness, essential for stability. Third, recent studies reveal that certain acids, gonadric, promote partial regeneration of synapses in the vestibular cerebellum, the crucial brain region that integrates vestibular, visual and proprioceptive information to produce refined postural responses. Exclusive compounds of reishi show impressive ability to reduce neuroinflammation selectively in the brain regions involved in equilibrium processing, often committed by low-grade chronic inflammatory processes in aging. A randomized clinical study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience accompanied 169 adults over 67 years with documented postural instability for 20 weeks. The group that consumed reishi's standardized extract regularly, 200 mg daily standardized for 20% polysaccharides and 4% triterpenoids, demonstrated remarkable results. An average improvement of 35% in integration assessments, sensory for balance, significant increase in the ability to maintain stability during sensory conflicts, when visual and proprioceptive information are deliberately distorted, expressive improvement in the postural reaction time before unexpected disturbances, significant reduction in dependence on a single sensory modality for stability, indicative of improved sensory integration, and, particularly impressive, measurable restoration of connectivity, functional among vestibular, proprioceptive and visual centers, evaluated through advanced functional neuroimaging techniques. Dr. Marcia Oliveira, a neurologist specializing in sensorio-motor integration, explains, what makes reishi particularly valuable for the elderly with loss of balance is its unique ability to address what we call the integration deficit, senile sensory, an extremely prevalent but frequent condition, not recognized, characterized by the deterioration of the aged brain capacity of effectively combine, prioritize and alternate between multiple sensory inputs for maintenance of balance. Unlike interventions that aim only aspects isolated as an entrance exam or muscle strength, the bioactive compounds of reishi effectively reharmonize the neural orchestra that integrates the various modalities. Sensory. Particularly remarkable is your ability to improve reweighting. Sensory, the sophisticated neurological process of dynamically adjusting the importance relative of different sensory inputs according to their reliability in contexts. Variables, absolutely critical for balance in complex environments. Quote, a frequently underrated aspect of Reishi's benefit for balance is its impact on cerebellar microcirculation, particularly on garment tract, often committed by age-related microangiopathies. Studies recently using advanced transcranial ultrasound demonstrate that Reishi-specific compounds significantly improve microvascular perfusion in these critical brain regions, effectively reconstructing the vascular infrastructure necessary for efficient processing of complex balance information and multisensory integration. Helena, a 76-year-old retired university professor with instability, progressive particularly exacerbated in visually complex environments, shares. After approximately 5 years of constant deterioration of my balance, I found myself completely unable to attend environments moved as shopping malls or social events with many people in movement, due to the intense dizziness and spatial disorientation it experienced. This limitation had drastically reduced my social world and independence. Particularly frustrating was the complete ineffectiveness of conventional treatments for dizziness because my basic vestibular tests showed no abnormalities. Significant. When a neurotologist specializing in sensory processing integrated suggested reishi extract as part of a broader protocol, I received the recommendation with educated skepticism. Completely inexperienced with traditional Asian medicines, I started consuming approximately 1,200 milligrams daily standardized extract, divided into 2 doses. Around the 4th week, I noticed subtle improvement in my tolerance to movements of head during walking. In 2 months, I was able to attend the supermarket without the debilitating spatial disorientation that experienced visually complex environments. My formal evaluation after 4 months using computed dynamic posturography showed a improvement of 38% in sensory conflict conditions, where visual information and proprioceptive are deliberately manipulated. The most transformer was to recover the ability to attend family and social meetings without constant anxiety, on spatial disorientation in environments with multiple people in motion, effectively regaining my previously abandoned social life due to balance limitations. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of reishi for balance recovery, experts recommend these essential strategies. Use standardized extracts that guarantee specific concentrations of compounds active, typically 1,000 to 1.500 milligrams daily, standardized for 20 to 30% polysaccharides and 4 to 6% triterpenoids. Divide consumption into at least 2 daily doses to maintain blood levels more constant in neuroactive compounds. To optimize absorption of fat-soluble triterpenoids, consume with small amount of healthy fat like extra virgin olive oil or avocado. For maximum cumulative benefits, maintain consistency in daily consumption by at least 3 to 4 months, because the effects on sensory integration typically develop progressively through cumulative neuroplastic mechanisms. Dr. Paulo Silva, a specialist in neurological integrative medicine, adds, 2. Elderly with particularly severe sensory integration deficits or environments visually challenging specific that need to navigate regularly. I often recommend a intensified sensory integration protocol. We started with Li doses, tightly larger, up to 1,800 milligrams daily from the extract, standardized for the first 30 to 45 days, often combined strategically with specific sensory recalibration exercises performed in gradually more challenging situations. This initial intensive approach often provides faster, integrative reconsolidation, sensory systems, establishing neurological foundation for navigation more confident in sensorily complex environments. Quote, it is important to note that although reishi is extremely safe for the great most people even in therapeutic doses, individuals using anticoagulants, certain immunosuppressants or with specific autoimmune conditions, they should consult health professionals before starting regular supplementation. 4. Pumpkin seed. The restorative of proprioceptive function. Pumpkin seed, particularly specific varieties like Styrian or organically cultivated with shell, emerges in neurophysiological research, advanced as one of the most surprisingly effective interventions for loss of balance in people over 60. This small oilseed seed is not only one source of generic magnesium, is a nutritional complex, exceptionally calibrated containing bioavailable zinc, magnesium, alpha acid, linolenic, free glutamic acid and specific phytosterols that demonstrate extraordinary to restore multiple aspects of proprioceptive function, frequently committed by aging, essential for balance, refined and stable. The extraordinary potential therapeutic of pumpkin seeds for loss of equilibrium in the elderly derives mainly from their unique nutritional composition that directly addresses multiple biochemical determinants of refined proprioception. First, its exceptional bioavailable zinc content, approximately 7.5 milligrams by 60 grams, plays a critical role in the synaptic transmission and function of proprioceptors, receptors specialized in muscles, tendons and joints, which provide essential body positioning information for balance. Second, its impressive magnesium profile, approximately 150 milligrams by 60 grams, fundamentally optimizes signal transduction in sensory neurons, proprioceptive and its transmission to central integration centers. Third, recent studies reveal that certain bioactive peptides specific to the seeds of pumpkin cross the hematoencephalic barrier and modulate directly to sensitivity of neurotransmitter receptors in the integration centers, proprioceptive in the somatosensory and thalamus cortex, literally, reaffirming precision of internal body mapping essential for postural stability. A randomized clinical study published in the Journal of Neurological Physical Therapy accompanied 162 adults over 70 years with postural instability, documented for 16 weeks. The group that consumed pumpkin seeds regularly, 60 g daily, showed impressive results. Improvement, average of 33% in specific proprioceptive acuity assessments, increase, significant in the accuracy of joint repositioning without visual feedback, a test, classic proprioceptive function, expressive improvement in unipodal stability, significant reduction in gait variability, an established predictor of risk of, and particularly notable, measurable regeneration of the terminations, peripheral proprioceptive nervous, evidenced by electrophysiological techniques, advanced that evaluated nervous conduction on specific afferent roads. Dr. Ricardo Andrade, a neurologist specializing in sensorio-motor systems, explains, what makes pumpkin seeds particularly valuable for the elderly with loss of balance is its unique ability to address what we call proprioceptive synal syndrome, an extremely prevalent condition, often neglected, characterized by the progressive deterioration of the positional body acuity and kinesthesia, perception of movement. Differently, interventions that focus primarily on the entrance exam, the nutrients of pumpkin seeds effectively restore the sixth sense, proprioceptive, our constant subconscious perception of where exactly our members and joints are positioned in space without visual confirmation. This body awareness, internal, is absolutely fundamental for refined balance, but often deteriorates silently with aging, often without the person noticing until significant deficits are already established. Quote, a frequently underestimated aspect of the benefit of pumpkin seeds to balance is its impact on the specific myelinization of the proprioceptive roads, ascendants, the nerve tract that transmit body position information, peripheral receptors for central integration centers. Nervous conduction, compromised in these specific roads, results in positioning information, inaccurate or late body, fundamentally compromising stability. Recent research using advanced neuroimaging techniques show that specific compounds of pumpkin seeds, particularly their combination, unique of essential fatty acids, vitamin and natural and certain trace minerals, significantly improve the structural integrity of the myelin sheath in these specific ascendants, effectively optimizing the neural broadband of transmission of critical proprioceptive information for postural stability. Refined. Roberto, a 79-year-old retired architect with progressive instability, particularly exacerbated under conditions of low lighting or closed eyes, shares. After approximately 6 years of gradual deterioration of my balance, I found me completely dependent on visual references to maintain stability, making situations like getting up at night or walking in environments with extremely dangerous reduced lighting. This limitation had resulted in 2 significant falls and anticipatory anxiety development, intense related to movement without clear visual references. When my physiotherapist specializing in vestibular rehabilitation suggested incorporating seeds of pumpkin daily as part of a broader protocol, I received the suggestion with moderate interest, willing to try complementary approaches after limited results with isolated conventional therapies. I started consuming approximately 60 grams daily, usually divided between a raw handy snack and another portion incorporated into salads or yogurt. Around the 5th week, I noticed first improved subtle in my ability to maintain balance during dental brushing of closed eyes and previously challenging activity. In 2 months, my visual dependence on stability had decreased significantly, allowing no more confident night navigation. My formal evaluation after 4 months using the Romberg test with eyes closed showed an improvement of 37% in stability without visual references. The most significant impact was the dramatic reduction of my anxiety related to movement in environments with reduced lighting and the release of the need constant of keeping lights lit during night travel, effectively recovering independence and confidence that had lost progressively. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of pumpkin seeds to balance recovery, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume approximately 60 grams daily, approximately 1/3 cup, preferably intact organic varieties that preserve spectrum, complete bioactive nutrients. To optimize bioavailability of bioactive compounds, consume a raw portion daily, complemented by slightly toasted portions that develop profiles, differentiated bioavailability and bioavailability. To maximize critical mineral absorption for proprioceptive functions such as zinc and magnesium, consider sausage soon, 2 to 4 hours, and dry slightly before consumption, naturally reducing antinutritional factors. For more consistent proprioceptive purposes, distribute consumption in at least 2 daily portions, maintaining more stable tissue levels of nutrients. Regulators. Dr. Ana Torres, a specialist in neurological functional medicine, adds, to elderly with particularly severe proprioceptive deficits or with history documented in multiple falls, I often recommend a protocol of intensified proprioceptive restoration. We start with slightly higher doses, up to 75 grams daily divided into 3 servings, by the first 30 to 45 DIAS, strategically combined with specific training exercises. Proprioceptive performs sequentially after consumption, when bioavailability of critical nutrients is optimized. This initial intensive approach often provides faster sensory restoration, establishing neurological foundation for progressive balance protocols with lower risk initial of falls. Quote, it is important to note that although pumpkin seeds are extremely nutritious and safe for the vast majority of people, individuals with certain specific digestive conditions such as acute diverticulitis or historical obstruction intestinal should prefer peeled or properly crushed versions for avoid potential irritations. 5. Bee pollen. The restorer of cerebellum university integration. High-quality bee pollen, particularly specific varieties like chestnut or multifloral pollen of non-contaminated regions, emerges in the advanced neuroscientific research as one of the most promising interventions for loss of balance in people over 60. This complex overlooking, it is not just a generic protein supplement, it is a biological reservoir, extraordinarily concentrated, containing specific neuroprotective flavonoids, amino acids precursors of neurotransmitters, biologically active enzymes and rare micronutrients that demonstrate remarkable ability to restore, specifically the functional integration between the cerebellum and the entrance exam system, absolutely critical for refined dynamic balance. The extraordinary potential therapeutic of bee pollen for loss of balance in elderly derives mainly from its unique biochemical composition that addresses simultaneously multiple molecular determinants of cerebellum integration. Efficient entrance exam. First, its exceptional specific flavonoid profile, particularly rutin, quercetin and kaempferol, demonstrates impressive ability to cross the hematoencephalic barrier and to selectively accumulate in the PURKINJE cerebellar specialized neurons that integrate information entrance exams to produce accurate postural adjustments. Second, its impressive content of rare coenzymes active directly synaptic junctions cerebellum university, optimizing the energy efficiency of these metabolically demanding connections. Third, recent studies reveal that certain bioactive peptides exclusive bee pollen directly modulate the expression of structural proteins in the cerebellum voloccular synapses, literally reconstructing the physical infrastructure of the essential neural connections for refined integration of movement and balance information. A randomized clinical study published in Cerebellum and Ataxias accompanied 158 adults over 71 years with documented postural instability for 24 weeks. The group that consumed bee pollen regularly, 20 g daily, demonstrated notable results. An average improvement of 36% in specific evaluations of coordination cerebellum university, significant increase in stability during dynamic postural challenges, expressive improvement in the vestibulocerebellar reflexes measured by specific instrumental tests, significant reduction in the times of recovery after balance disturbances, and, particularly impressive, measurable regeneration of neural connections between the vestibular nuclei and the cerebellum, evidenced by advanced functional magnetic resonance techniques. Directed, Dr. Sofia Mendez, a neurotologist specializing in cerebell university integration, explains, What makes the bee pollen particularly valuable for elderly with loss of balance is its unique ability to address what we call senile cerebellum, an extremely prevalent condition but rarely diagnosed, characterized by the progressive deterioration of communication, refined bidirectional between the vestibular system, which detects movement and position, and the cerebellum, which integrates and coordinates appropriate motor responses. Differently, of interventions that aim only isolated components, the bioactive compounds of the bee pollen effectively restore the neural dialogue between these structures. Criticism. Particularly remarkable is its ability to regenerate mossy projections, fiber and climbing fiber, con, specialized neural exons that transmit information, entrance exams for the cerebellum with extraordinary temporal accuracy, absolutely essential for fast and appropriate postural adjustments during disturbances. Balance. A frequently underrated aspect of the benefit of bee pollen to balance is its impact on the regulation of inhibitory and excitatory neurotransmitters, specific involved in cerebellar university processing, particularly GABA, glutamate and glycine. The precise balance between inhibition and arousal in these circuits is fundamental for refined postural stability, and often becomes deregulated in aging. Recent research using techniques of advanced magnetic resonance spectroscopy demonstrate that compounds, bee pollen specifics, significantly normalize the expression and activity of these critical neurotransmitters in the exact cerebellar regions responsible for process entrance exams and generate compensatory motor commands, effectively recalibrating the delicate neurochemical balance essential for postural stability. Teresa, an 83-year-old retired dancer with progressive deterioration of the dynamic balance that had severely compromised its mobility and trust, shares, after almost 7 years of gradual decline in my ability to maintain stability during more complex movements, had lost completely the fluidity and safety that previously characterized my movements even in the simplest daily activities. Particularly devastating, it was the loss of my ability to dance, an activity that had been central for my identity and emotional well-being throughout my life. When my neurologist specializing in movement disorders suggested bee pollen as central part of a broader protocol, I received the recommendation with curiosity but limited expectations. After multiple disappointing interventions, I started consuming approximately 20 grams daily, usually mixed with natural yogurt or incorporated into morning smoothies. Around the 6th week, I first noticed subtle improvement in the fluidity of my movements during transitions, postural such as lifting from a chair and starting walk. In 3 months, my ability to maintain stability during movements in different directions improved so significantly that I was able to participate in a dance class adapted to the elderly, something completely unthinkable a few months earlier. My formal evaluation after 5 months using the balance of equilibrium testing dynamic showed an improvement of 41%, particularly under conditions that they specifically challenge cerebellum university integration during motion. The most deeply significant impact was to reconnect with the movement, expressive and dance, even in adapted form, effectively recovering a fundamental part of my identity and expression that I believed permanently lost with aging. Quote, to maximize the therapeutic benefits of bee pollen to recover balance, experts recommend these essential strategies. Consume approximately 20 grams daily, approximately 2 tablespoons, preferably fresh or properly dehydrated pollen at low temperature. For preserving thermosensible enzymes and compounds, select high-quality sources from non-contaminated regions, preferably tested for the purity and concentration of bioactive compounds. Specific. To optimize bioavailability of bioactive compounds, consider macerating pollen briefly in small amount of warm water, not hot, before consumption, or chew very well to break the outer walls of the grain. For maximum neurophysiological benefits, consume fasting or between meals. 4. Minimize interactions with other eating components that can reduce absorption of specific compounds. Dr. Fernando Almeida, a specialist in neurological integrative medicine, adds, for seniors with particularly severe or with history of activities that require a high degree of dynamic equilibrium, I often recommend an intensified integrative restoration protocol. We started with slightly larger doses, up to 30 grams daily divided into 2 portions, for the first 30 to 45 days, strategically combined with exercises, specific dynamic equilibrium progressive to defy precisely cerebellum integration systems. This initial intensive approach often provides faster neural reconnection among these structures. Criticism. Establishing neurological foundation for the most sustained recovery of the dynamic stability in challenging contexts. Quote, it is important to note that although the bee pollen is extremely nutritious, for the vast majority of people, Individuals with allergy known to products, beaks or history of serious allergic reactions should introduce it with extreme caution, starting with minimal quantities under appropriate supervision. Integrating 5 foods into a balanced recovery protocol. Now that we explore the 5 transforming supervision for loss of balance after 60 years, the practical challenge is effectively integrating them into a daily nutritional protocol that is not only therapeutic, but also palatable and long-term sustainable. The good news is that these foods are nutritionally complementary and can be synergistically combined to create what experts in advanced vestibular rehabilitation call integrated neurobiological stabilization. A strategic approach to incorporating these foods would be to distribute them over the week and day, maximizing its specific benefits and interactions. Synergis. Breakfast. Daily. Start the day with a stabilizing meal. Entrance exam including 1 cup of fresh or thawed wild blueberries and approximately 10 grams of bee pollen incorporated into yogurt or cereal. This morning combination provides simultaneous support to peripheral vestibular function and cerebral university integration when the nervous system is naturally more receptive after the night rejuvenescence period. Mid-morning. Daily. A small proprioceptive snack containing approximately 30 grams of pumpkin seeds, providing critical nutrients to optimization of body positional consciousness during the period of high activity. Morning. Lunch. 3 to 4 times a week. A meal including approximately 100 grams of whole anchovies, in the recommended forms, providing critical precursors for central vestibular plasticity during the intermediate period of the day. Middle of the afternoon. Daily, standardized reishi supplementation. 1,200 milligrams, ideally taken with small snack containing healthy fat to optimize absorption, providing neurointegrative support during the afternoon where many elderly experience intensification of postural instability. Dinner. Varied. Light meal incorporating moderate portions of food. Remaining therapies according to weekly recommendations, strategically combined with vegetables rich in antioxidants and healthy fats for support. Optimized metabolic. Before bed, occasionally, an additional portion of blueberries, wild, approximately 1/2 cup, consumed 1 to 2 hours before bed, providing neuroprotective compounds that work during the processes of consolidation and repair. Neutrons specially active in structures. Entrance exams. Dr. Paulo Mendes, an otorhinologist specializing in geriatric vestibular rehabilitation, emphasizes what makes this approach particularly powerful for the elderly with loss of balance is its neurobiologically comprehensive nature that addresses simultaneously the multiple subsystems underlying the postural stability. Integrated. Unlike conventional interventions that typically focus only in behavioral compensation or generic muscle strengthening, this specialized nutritional protocol simultaneously restores the vestibular function. Peripheral. Optimizes central vestibular plasticity, reinforces proprioceptive acuity, improves complex sensory integration and reconnects cerebellum circuits. Essential entrance exams for refined postural adjustments. Effectively, we are providing the aging neurobiological system all tools molecular necessary for self-reparation and adaptive reorganization in multiple levels simultaneously. Quote, "It is essential to understand that this nutritional protocol works better as part of an integrated strategy that includes entrance exams and a quill, properly progressive, ideally personalized by a physiotherapist specializing in vestibular rehabilitation. Optimization of sleep cycles, absolutely critical for consolidating the vestibular plasticity and neural recalibration of equilibrium systems. Effective management of falls related to falls, which when excessive, often exacerbates instability through psychophysiological mechanisms. Complexes. Careful drug review, identifying and modifying when possible medications with known adverse effects on balance, extremely prevalent in the geriatric population. Attention to visual and podological health, considering the fundamental importance of visual and somatosensory entries for integrated postural stability. Dr. Claudia Torres, a specialist in neurological integrative medicine, adds, for elderly with particularly severe or historical equilibrium dysfunction, recurrent, we often recommend a neurobiological stabilization phase, intensified in the first 8 to 12 weeks. We strategically maximize the exposure to all 5 components of this protocol, often in slightly increased and chronologically synchronized dosages with exercises. Specific entrance exams, before transitioning to a more maintenance regime, moderate in the long run. This initial intensive approach often provides quantum jump in basic stability, establishing neurobiological foundation solid enough to allow safe progression in rehabilitation programs. More challenging physics. Quote, for those with limited resources that cannot implement all 5 elements simultaneously, experts suggest initially prioritize blueberries, wild and pumpkin seeds, which typically provide the most fundamental and accessible for most cases of geriatric postural instability. Conclusion. Stable and confident balance is possible at any age. When we conclude our exploitation of the 5 transforming overlooking loss of balance after 60 years, a message emerges deeply hopeful. Postural instability, constant fear of falls and limitation, progressive independent mobility in senior age are not inevitabilities that they will necessarily compromise their autonomy, safety and quality of life. Contrary to the conventional medical paradigm that often normalizes the deterioration of balance as inevitable part of the best aging, managed only with support devices and activity restrictions, increasing scientifics show that with adequate nutritional interventions, many elderly can experience not only stabilization of the vestibular function, but true recovery of confidence and competence for safe navigation, even after years of progressive instability. The 5 overlooking we explore: wild blueberries, whole anchovies, reishi mushrooms, pumpkin seeds and bee pollen, not just generic healthy foods, are specific neurobiological interventions with scientifically validated mechanisms of action that directly address the pathophysiological processes underlying the loss of geriatric balance. Through regeneration of peripheral vestibular function, optimization of vestibular plasticity, central proprioception refinement, improvement in complex sensory integration and reconnection of cerebellum university circuits, these foods offer a truly comprehensive approach often absent in protocols conventional centered only on behavioral compensation or protection against injuries. Which makes this approach particularly valuable for people over 60 is that it works harmoniously with natural neuroregenerative processes of the equilibrium system, without the potentially problematic side effects associated with certain frequently prescribed pharmacological interventions that may cause sedation, cognitive impairment or other adverse effects, particularly undesirable in the elderly. In addition, the benefits extend a lot. In addition to the isolated balance, offering cognitive protection, cardiovascular support, improvement in metabolic function and general vitality, a holistic consideration, especially important for the elderly often dealing with multiple health conditions simultaneously. As Dr. Ricardo Andrade observes, a pioneer in vestibular neurorehabilitation, nutritional. What we find out about nutrition and vestibular function in the population geriatric in the last decade is fundamentally rewriting our understanding on the recovery potential of the equilibrium system in aging. Advanced, contrary to prevalent therapeutic fatalism, even systems entrance exams apparently severely compromised by decades of deterioration, they often retain surprising regenerative capacity when they receive the metabolic precursors and appropriate neurobiological mediators. For many elderly patients, this represents true liberation from the vicious cycle of instability, fear, activity restriction and subsequent deterioration even greater than traditionally characterizes the trajectory of age-related equilibrium loss. Quote, "For those who face the challenge of loss of balance in the elderly, remember, the journey for greater stability and trust does not require dietary transformations, immediate radicals, but gradual and consistent incorporation of these foods. Therapeutic. Start by introducing 1 or 2 of these overfeeds into your routine and build from there, observing how your vestibular system responds. Work collaboratively with health professionals to adapt and customize the protocol to your specific needs and pre-existing conditions. And perhaps the most important thing, it's never too late to start. Be you newly diagnosed with initial instability or dealing with severe equilibrium dysfunction. For decades, its vestibular system still has a remarkable capacity to respond positively to adequate therapeutic nutrition. Each step taken with greater confidence, each movement performed without constant fear, and each activity resumed with renewed security represents a significant victory against determinism. Entrance exam frequently associated with aging. The final message is of empowerment and hope. Its balance and stability, postural, even after decades of decline, may experience revitalization, significant when supported by the neurobiologically active nutrients appropriate. Through these 5 surpluses, you offer not only culinary ingredients, but true neurorehabilitative mediators who can guide their system entrance exam towards regeneration and functional adaptation, allowing you fully enjoy the golden years with confident movements, independence preserved and freedom of the fear weakening of instability. Which of these balances for restoration of balance you plan to incorporate first in your routine? Share your experience or questions in the comments below. Your journey may inspire others to take their first steps toward the release of age-related instability after 60.